A client of mine recently asked me, how do I know when being responsible for another person becomes unhealthy? What's the true measure of healthy responsibility? If you're in a relationship, regardless of the nature of the relationship, at some point you may have recognized or you may have acknowledged that you are towing all of the responsibility in the relationship, or that the other person has abdicated their responsibility and you're left holding the bag, and it doesn't sit well with you. Most people that get into relationships go into relationships wanting to be responsible, wanting to show up for their partners, wanting their partners to appreciate who they are. And that's fine. That's fine as long as the element of external validation is not too present. Let me say that again. If you're not going into a relationship simply so you can validate who you are through another person, then you're good. Validation is not a bad thing. Children want validation from their parents. Parents want to be validated by their children, vice versa. And in relationships, it's no different. But if you go into a relationship seriously seeking validation from this person alone and wanting this person to validate all your actions and everything you do, then you're starting out on a rocky path. So to answer the question, when does responsibility in a relationship become unhealthy, I broke it down to my client this way. I said, you know what? There are three elements that will indicate that you are in an unhealthy relationship, or that the responsibility is askew or unequal or unbalanced. The first element is when you lose yourself. How many of us say all the time, you know what, I don't want to lose myself in a relationship. And then you get into a relationship, and guess what? The first thing you do is lose yourself. As a matter of fact, there's some people that chronically do this. It's a pattern of behavior. They say from the outstart, in my last relationship, I gave my everything to this person. And in this relationship, I am absolutely setting a boundary that I'm not going to lose myself. And then there you go. You're catapulted into the same pattern of behavior from the former relationship. It may take a while, but it happens. And the reason it happens where you lose yourself is not about the other person. The other person is not causing you to lose yourself. It's just you haven't done the work on yourself, so you don't lose yourself. You haven't figured out why you lost yourself in the first place, or the triggers or the things that make you lose yourself, period. And then you bring that to the relationship, you haven't done the work, and you're like, I'm better, I got this, and you don't got nothing. Yeah, is a pattern, is a cycle. And if you're looking to break it, then do the work. I truly believe in therapists and psychologists and counselors. I believe in using all the tools at your disposal to help you become a better person. One of my favorite authors, James Allen, says it this way: you attract that which you are. You have to stop and ask yourself what you're attracting, first of all. What are you attracting when you get into a relationship? You're attracting elements in that other person that you need to resolve the issues that you have not resolved within yourself. So if you want to go according to that law, it makes sense to deal with yourself before you get into a relationship. That's my stance. That's the knowledge that I throw out there. And I'm not saying anything new, because there's nothing new under the sun. So the first element that indicates, let's go back to the topic. The first element that indicates that you're not abdicating responsibility, but that you've taken on too much responsibility in the relationship, in addition to the other person's issues, in addition to the other person's responsibilities, is when you lose yourself. When you no longer understand who you are, or your identity becomes, enmeshed in the other person's identity, or you start realizing that everything you do is for this person or because of this person, and you lose sight of your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, even your motivation. That's losing yourself, when you no longer understand who you are and why you exist. That's problematic. The second thing is when you realize the relationship is codependent. Now, I think that everyone should look up codependency to understand how it works and what it is. It is often referred to as love addiction. There are a lot of people that are in relationships that think they're in relationships because they're in love with a person, but truly is a codependent relationship because they got into the relationship because one, they bonded on trauma, or they bonded because of one similarity. I used to do that years ago. Years ago, it was like you want this one quality in a person, you see it, and then you're like, oh, that one quality is there, and you ignore all the other red flags and you rush headlong into the relationship, and you don't stop to think, let me look at the other red flags instead of looking at this one quality that differentiates this person from everybody else. And we ignore all the other red flags because that's what we want. And then we end up in a codependent relationship, because in codependent relationships, you actually give up who you are in order to become part of something. And there's nothing wrong with that. Relationships are supposed to be partnerships. Relationships are supposed to be coming together of two healthy individuals with two healthy outlooks that can, that can take them down to their goals or help them achieve, whatever they decide to achieve together. And that's the purpose of a relationship, to have a healthy partnership. But the partnership in a codependent relationship is one that is riddled with unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy patterns, and just unhealthy characteristics. You bring that to the relationship and you keep on trying to label it as love, but really and truly, you're addicted to love and you're trying to make this relationship that's unhealthy one that becomes this love that is so intangible that you can't live without this person. Trust me, you can live without anyone. You can't live without, spirituality, but you can live without another person, especially if that person is unhealthy for you. So the first thing is losing yourself, losing sight of your identity, losing sight of your goals and aspirations and motivation. The second thing is becoming codependent, to where you and this person are enmeshed and become one, and you no longer have your individuality, and you no longer can think for yourself, or you no longer can, identify who you are in the midst of that relationship. That is what codependency is. The third thing is resentment. Every relationship has an element of resentment at some point. If you're trying to say, oh, I don't resent my partner, I have no resentment, that's fine. Then you're in a really good place and you need to stay there. But in relationships where the whole responsibility aspect becomes one where it's skewed, there's always some level of resentment. And why wouldn't there be resentment? Why wouldn't you resent the other person when you started out on this journey together down this path and you're walking together, and then you're all the way ahead and the other person is back there and they're just jogging like this, and you've run ahead of them because you're towing the line. You're taking up all the responsibility for this other person that committed to the process of doing this together, committed to going the extra miles, and then all of a sudden they're behind and you're ahead. Of course, resentment is going to develop. Of course, you're going to resent them for the fact that they're not doing their part. They're not living up to the expectations that you set or both of you set together. And that resentment, and I have a lot of videos on here about resentment. One of those videos is how to stop building walls in the relationship. You should watch that one. But resentment is a result of the inequity in a relationship. If the relationship is not equal, if both of you are not pulling your weight, if both of you have gone off on different paths, the resentment will come. And that resentment is something that has to be addressed in order for you both to get back on the same path. So identifying how the lack of responsibility affects your relationship and how responsibility can truly be unhealthy is indicated in these three aspects: losing yourself, resentment, and what's the third? The other one I said? Codependency. How can I forget codependency? Codependency is huge. And a lot of people, when they get too codependent, the resentment is higher. It is much higher in that relationship because one person is always doing more than the other person, or the other person has lost themselves. And when they identify that they've lost their identity, the resentment builds up towards the other person instead of really taking responsibility and saying, you know what? I did this. I allowed this. I had a part to play in this. Don't start the blame game when you identify these three elements. Don't say, you know what, it's the other person's fault. Take responsibility and accountability for your role in it and switch it up. You know, once you identify codependency, take a step back, create clear boundaries in your relationship, allow the other person to redevelop their identity, to find themselves, to be responsible, to take accountability without you always having to take accountability and responsibility for them. And that way the resentment will go away. My name is Ingrid Felton. As always, thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. I hope that you can always find some gold nugget here, that there's something to help you in your relationship. Relationships are not easy. I say that all the time. There always a constant work, and you have to do the work if you plan on staying in the relationship and if you value the relationship. Please continue to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, tell others about what I'm doing here, you know, leave your comments. I appreciate you coming. And if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me. My number is included in the video. Have an amazing day. Bye.